name is Emma Cravens.
And I'm not going to eat sugar anymore.
And I don't eat very much sugar.
I think sugar-free candy is nasty. Well, okay, you were telling me Aunt Julie. And her last name was Mitchell, you think?
Mm-hmm.
And her husband's name, what did you call him, Uncle?
Her son's name is Arthur. I should ask Jay. He had told us.
And did they all die, or
And
did some of them move? Or?
No, they all died. See, and their daughter-in-law's name was. She called with that Mamaw. Never would sit at the table and eat with us, so she'd go out on a little table on the back. Of course, we just never eat with us at the table. She wouldn't do.
That was the daughter-in-law? Was that Julie or the daughter-in-law?
Daughter-in-law.
What was her name?
I'm trying to think.
Tell Julie's story again. You said Julie.
I think Julie was the mother. And I don't remember what his name was.
And she was a midwife.
Mm-hmm.
And who did she deliver?
Ambrose.
You said she delivered too, Ambrose.
Well, Aunt Margaret Craven, Apple's sister.
Oh, she delivered Margaret too?
Yeah. They lived over there where Carl lives now. I didn't know them then. I didn't know Cravens then.
Right. So when you went over to, you used to go over to Julie's,
Yeah, that's also what Aunt Julie.
and she'd tell me the story about where you asked her.
Where she kept her babies. And the wardrobe's up right there in the door in that. I said it was a 4-room house. And it had kitchen and I'm going to put my candy back.
I know, but it's going to come up on the tape.
Huh?
It's going to come up on the tape. You can hear it on the tape.
Oh, is it going?
Yeah. I just want you to talk now.
And call.
Big call.
Yeah, it's a 4-room house. She had a kitchen, a living room, and 2 bedrooms, and a room upstairs.
Uh-huh.
1 bedroom upstairs. And we go over and visit, and so I asked her where she kept her babies, and she said in that wardrobe. And she delivered Ambrose and Margaret Cravens, Rayleigh. So,
And they're
they're buried there on the farm.
Do you remember when they died?
No, I don't remember what years or anything they died.
But do you remember when they died? I mean, do you remember?
Yeah, I guess I do. Beulah. Beulah was the daughter-in-law's name. Beulah. And she says she and Arthur lived over there after Aunt Julie and her husband died.
They didn't have any kids? Beulah?
Mm-mm. They didn't have any children.
Huh. And you think they came from Newburgh?
Well, I just know Arthur had a brother lived at Newburgh. I don't know where they came from. I wouldn't have any idea where they came from.
How old are you?
How old was I?
Yeah.
Just a teenager, teens.
Tell me about what you heard about Mom, Susie, and Granddad, how they met.
Well, Granddad lived up in the Mount Zion area.
But he wasn't born there. Was he born
He
in
was
Mount
born up around his father, no, because his father died up around Stanley. So they were born all up in there somewhere. Brook City or some of those places up in there. He was born, we was buried out by those barns somewhere up in that, a long time ago. They didn't always have cemeteries that they buried them in and things, I don't know.
So who's buried?
Great-grandpa Beasley. Dad's the one I said buried up around Stanley.
Oh, Oh, okay.
And then they had, I guess, come on down in here, his mother and them, I suppose, after that, she had those 4 boys, and you got down?
Mhm.
She had those 4 boys, Uncle Emmett Beasley, and Uncle John, Aunt William Ambrose, my dad, and then Walter. And she came down in here with these children, and she lived with her brother, Bill Smith, helped raise them. He was their father to them. And he fell in a fire and burnt. And then, so then Dad and them just lived up in the Mount Zion area there somewhere. I don't know for sure where they did live, but, and then, of course, Bluff City was across the river. And my mother had come from Tell City and up in there
And she'd come down to work?
to, well, her mother married a Jones, and they come down the river on a boat and lived at Bluff City. And I don't know what happened to this Jones. He died, I think, while they lived there. I don't know even where he's buried. They took him back up in Indiana. Not, they took Grandma back up in Indiana to, it's on this side, Tell City. I can't think of the place right now. And it's where great-grandmother's buried.
Mm-hmm.
Isabel.
Figgins.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mom
Morris Figgins, Morris Jones is what she was.
So,
She had this brother, half-brother, Jesse Jones, that lived in Davenport, Iowa, and he died in Davenport, Iowa. He was buried out there.
so Mama Susie came down to work?
Well, her whole family just came down here, so she got a job, and I have this all wrote out for you in there somewhere.
Well, I know, but who did she work for?
The Haynes family. They run.
Just like their nanny?
And she was a nanny. That wasn't what she called herself then, but that's what they called them, you know. And they had 2 children, and she did their cooking and cleaning and working. Had to take care of those 2 children at Bluff City.
How did her and Granddad meet?
Well, he came over there, and he told somebody one day this. I don't recall him telling me this, but he told somebody that he seen her come in there in a buggy, and he said, that's the first woman he ever did see, and said, I'm going to marry her. And so later they did.
And that was up in Mount Zion?
It was over Bluffs where he met her. Of course, that's just the river across there, and there was a ferry there at that time. And that picture that's hanging in there in the bedroom, Aunt Goldie and Uncle John and Mom and Dad by a tree, that was made just before they were married. Both of them, Uncle John, Aunt Goldie, and Mom and Dad. And
So that's how they met.
yeah, he met her over there. I don't know, there was a church, probably, I don't know.
What church did they go to?
She went to DuPay. She's a charter member of DuPay. Missionary Baptist, D-U-P-E-Y.
She was a missionary down there?
P-A-Y, Missionary Baptist. She was a charter member.
Where is that? Is that in
That's in Bluff City. Still there in Bluff City.
Is it a white people church or
Mhm.
what? Really?
Mm-hmm. That's where the Hayneses and the Hazelwoods and all them all lived over in there. Yeah. Yeah, I read that book that Hazelwood wrote. Don Hazelwood wrote a book. It's in the library. And he talks about how Bluff City was established and how all there at the Bluff and all. And he speaks a lot about DuPay Baptist Church there.
Have you been there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been there. It's a small white church.
When you were growing up, where did you go to church? Did y'all go to church every
I
Sunday?
went to Sunrise, this Pleasant Valley that we passed this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Went there to church.
What kind of church is that?
It was General Baptist.
General Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference in General Baptist and Missionary Baptist?
They won't accept our baptism.
So you have to get rebaptized?
They have to be rebaptized. They won't take communion with us. They believe in taking communion with us in just their own church. And I think they're breaking some of those rules, but they used to wouldn't even take it with their sister church. Same belief. They believe taking it like Jesus took it with his 12 disciples. They believe in that. We take it with, you examine your own self and whoever you are, if you feel like you're a Christian.
And so you went to church? You grew
I
up
went
going
to Pleasant Valley and Sunrise. That's what they had a big sunshine up over it. And it's there where Judy Beasley's trailer is right now, a mobile home.
Now you said also Mom Susie made y'all go to school.
Yeah, and she's the one that everybody said what was the difference in some of these children. And they said it was the mother.
Difference in who? Difference in Mama Susie's kids. Don't say it. No one's going to hear the statement name.
The Beasley.
Oh, that was the difference in those Beasley kids. Was that
The
she
mother.
made the mother because she made them go to school.
She seen that we went to school. She did without that we could go to school, you know.
But she didn't go to school, right?
Well, they didn't have much schooling.
Right.
She or Dad, either one, they educated themselves, you know.
But y'all, I mean, women and men both, y'all went to school.
Oh, yeah, all of us wanted to graduate. There was a couple of them didn't, but they went up in.
But you graduated, didn't you?
Yeah. He met Jill, Sis. Sis went to college. Emmett went some.
Yeah, so I didn't know you went to Western.
And Ambrose didn't finish, and neither did Carl. James did. The Orks did it too, and they got that in their junior years, maybe senior year.
So y'all were sharecroppers first, right?
For years, Dad sharecropped all up in the Mount Zion area, and all down in the Beals area. And
Did you have to move a lot? Did you have to move a lot?
every year, I think they said they moved. Or maybe it would stay a year or two, and they'd move in old houses that, my goodness, they wasn't insulated, they wasn't, floors had cracks. But we all survived.
And you don't know which side your grandparents, because your grandparents were alive in the Civil War, weren't they?
Probably, but I don't know anything about
They never talked
but
about
talked about the war, so I don't know.
If they're from Indiana, they're probably on the Union side. Probably weren't Confederates.
Probably not.
Now you went to school. You told me the story.
Griffith Creek.
Griffith Creek.
Now, they had a school in this church, this Pleasant Valley Church, Sunrise Church. Now, my sis and Emmett and them went over there to school.
Mm-hmm.
But then they built this Griffith Creek school down there, and so
Where was that?
the rest of us, that was across from the place where I told you that Uncle Walter lived. It would have just been the opposite side of the road,
Okay.
along in there.
Now who?
They had first it was just a one-room school. It had 8 grades in it. And then they built another room, so it had 8 grades. We had 2 rooms.
Was your teacher a woman or a man?
Miss Agnes Conlon, she taught all 8 of us. And Miss Hazel London was one of our teachers. Mr. Lett was one of our teachers. And Mr. Lett taught over at the church school too, because my sister and them went to him. I remember one time he went out and to correct us, he went out and got an old weed, and it would have a hard thing, I don't know what kind of weed you called it, at the top, and he'd go around and peck us on the head if he wanted us to be quiet. Or,
Did it hurt?
well, it probably scared us. We knew it was a correction rod.
You told me a story about you were. Mama Susie would make you wear long underwear. Tell that story.
Everybody did wore long underwear. I heard some girls telling this tale not long ago, and said that when they'd get away from home, they'd roll them up.
You said you did that.
And roll their socks down. Yeah, we did. We had old long brown socks and cotton socks. And then we'd roll them down like anklets.
So people could see your legs.
Because some kids was allowed to do that and some wasn't. So
You also told me a story about how you were sneaking across a bridge?
Yeah, that was the year we graduated, or along in that year. And we had to pay toll.
This is go across the Green River?
Yeah, from the Beals area to come over to
That's what I thought.
Spottsville, we had to come across the Green River Bridge there, and there was a toll bridge on this Spottsville side. And cost a dime, I believe, to cross it. Well, some of us didn't have dimes. Didn't want to spend it for that one. And so one would go up and pay the toll, and the rest of us would try to slip across. So there was about 8 or 10 of us running across there. And I fell down. And one of them hollered, "Oh, Emma's been shot." The man shot. He would shoot up in the air to scare us. And he shot up in the air, and I fell down. They thought I'd been shot. I think that was the 36 when we graduated, the year we graduated. They all laughed, the ones that still living laughed about that yet. Several of the classes dead now. It wasn't very many of us to begin with, maybe 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You used to tell me the story when I was little about the geese.
Yeah. Well, that was where Mr. Finkston, where I showed you today, where Mr. Finkston lives. We lived there for so many years. And Mother had geese. And so she'd send us out to get the water or pump water for the horses, Ambrose and myself. And these old geese would chase us, the old gander especially. And so the gander was the male, and so we went to get Mother some water, and had our buckets and was going back to the house, and the old gander got after us and got Ambrose down, and I threw the buckets at the old geese, and they run under the house. And one day Mother said, "I haven't seen my geese lately." And so that we got to looking, hunting for them, and they was under the house dead. I'd hit them in the head and drowned them again. But they would get my brother down and peck him. And I run off and left the poor old fellow.
What are you trying to save him?
Yeah.
Was she mad
I was
at you?
scared of that old goose, gander.
Was she mad at you?
Was she mad or he mad?
Was your mom mad?
No, I don't guess she was. I don't know.
How old were you?
Let's see, I'm several years older than he is. I don't remember for sure how old. So he was born in 20 or 22.
Were you a teenager?
I was born 17.
Were you a teenager?
How much difference is that? 20, 17.
We'll look it up. Well, tell me who you were named after.
I was named after my grandmother, Emma
Emma Smith.
and Smith, and Beasley, and then I was named after Mother's aunt, Aunt Eliza Briscoe, I believe was her last name.
Briscoe?
Briscoe,
Really?
I believe it.
That was her married name? Your aunt's married name?
I don't know for sure that Aunt Eliza was ever married. Some of me Mother said she wasn't. But she was her mother's sister, I believe. Well, that was.
Tell me about your bedroom. Did you all sleep in one room, the kids? Did all the girls sleep in one room?
My sister and myself slept in the living room where the stove was. And the boys slept in the back bedroom. They had 2 beds in there, and so all 5 of the boys slept back there in those bedrooms. And Mom and Dad had a little bedroom off from the kitchen, and they slept there. Of course, probably one of the babies slept with them, so like Ambrose, he probably slept with them for a year or
And
two.
this was the house out in Beals that we went and looked at today?
There.
That's where that was?
That's where that house was.
Do you remember when that house was?
Used to be a big old barn there. I mean, on the other side. Now, there's barns on this side now, but then there used to be a big old barn over on the other side, and that's where my brothers was walking along there, and they heard a noise, and they said, "Woo-hoo, who are you? Woo-hoo, who are you?" And they said, "Emma and J.L. Beasley." There was an owl in the barn. They come running out, told Mom and Dad, said, somebody's after us down in that barn, I know who we were. A lot of fun. We used to jump out of that hay loft. We'd see our kids do something like that now, we'd be scared to death. 6 or 8 feet up in the air, and we'd jump out of it.
Did you tell me that somebody was in the hay when the hay machine?
JL.
Tell me that.
My brother JL. I've got some pictures around here somewhere. And they was thrashing wheat. They'd go from farm to farm thrashing your wheat. The wheat thrasher was at Dad's. And had a great big old huge pile of straw. Well, they missed JL and they couldn't find him, and they got to looking, and he had gone around on the sunny side of the haystack and had fell asleep, and the straw was partly over him. And they dug him out. He went around and slept. And you had straw ticks. You didn't have mattresses. You had straw ticks and feather beds. A lot of people just had straw ticks. They didn't even have feather beds.
The straw tick was uncomfortable.
And you, every year when wheat thrashing machines come through, you washed your old straw tick, filled it up new with straw, and boy, it was way up here, and then put your feather bed on top of that. By the time it come next year, it was down. That straw had mashed down till it wasn't much to it. That's kind of everybody's bed was.
And those who Mama Susie taught you to sew and
Yeah.
cook.
There was a lady down to Beals, Miss Herb Smith, that taught us. She taught 4-H, and she taught me how to sew and had a piece of quilt. I think I was 8 years old when I pieced my first quilt. Little 4-patch. And I was left-handed, so it was. But she had patience with me and taught us all.
Did anybody try to make you right-handed?
Well, they tried, and Dad went down to school and told him, said, she's a naturally born left-handed. He was, I forget what you called them in the schools at that time. They had kind of like board members out in the community. And so he went down, a trustee, I believe that's what he was at the school. I told him to not try to change me because I was just, mother was left-handed.
How did Granddad go from being a sharecropper to a landowner and owning so much land? How did he do that?
He borrowed the money from the bank.
This was
Mm,
after
paid
the
back.
Depression.
There was an old log house there, 2 rooms, and a breezeway in between. I don't think the breezeway was even enclosed. It had a great big old living room and a kitchen. And we lived in that, see, Emmett and myself and Ambrose was still at home. Carl was married, and Emmett hadn't married. And James. Well, they weren't married, I don't know, but I remember, because James went to the service from there, but I believe we had the new house built when James went into the Navy.
Do you remember World War I?
Mm-mm.
You weren't born then.
17.
Yeah.
My dad didn't have to go to service because
Of y'all?
I was, my mother, I was pregnant with me, and you didn't have to go or something if you had. So,
Do you remember?
but James served, and he was in Honolulu when the Japs bombed it.
That's World War II. We'll get to that
Okay.
in just a second. Do you remember? Well, you remember FDR. Do you remember FDR? Did you listen to his fireside chats?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all had a radio?
Well, we finally got a radio. I see, when we was a long time getting a radio. I believe after James went to the service, he bought us one.
Y'all didn't. Did
We didn't.
Mama Susie
We
So
didn't,
none of y'all played music or anything. When was the first time you saw? Do you remember people ever going to see people play music? Just in church when you sang
just in
music?
church, we didn't have anything in church at that time but an old organ.
And when the Depression came along, you didn't know that it
Mm.
was the Depression. You just thought that's how. Nothing really changed for you.
Well, I guess it was harder times for the parents probably
Yeah.
because, you know, nothing wasn't worth anything.
But you don't remember a change.
No.
You don't remember just all at once everything was different.
Mm-mm.
Did you know what a flapper was?
Probably not.
No.
Because we didn't have any Victrolas. Now, some people did, but we didn't have Victrolas. We didn't have no records or any of those kind of things when I was growing up.
So all of your music was religious music.
Unless we heard something somewhere else. I remember when the old, like the big boats go down the river, we would listen for the Calliope play, and we could hear it from the Ohio River.
Calliope?
Calliope or whatever.
Yeah.
And we could hear that, and we just thought that was really something wonderful.
But you
But,
knew,
I didn't really know music much till after I went to school.
really? Because I guess, so nobody sang, it was just,
Well, my dad sang. So I guess that's where I got
Granddad
mine
sang?
from. Oh, yeah, he used to lead singing in church, and so I guess that's where I got mine. Mine's just natural.
right.
And we never had any voice training or anything like that.
But you knew, I mean, you knew some secular music, like you knew, did you know My Old Kentucky Home? And
Well, we learned
like
those
that?
in school.
You learned those.
Yeah, we had that kind of, My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean and those kind we learned at school.
Did you, now I asked you this before and you said you didn't know who Woody Guthrie was, but then I sang you some of his songs and you knew what they were. This land is your land.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
land- You knew
But
that,
I remember who wrote
but
them.
you didn't know who that was. Do you ever remember growing up, well, you don't remember when women got the vote?
Probably, back in my mind, probably remember.
But you don't remember like anything. Do you remember Herbert Hoover? Did you know he was president when he was president? Or?
Yeah, I remember hearing Dad and them talk about it. So we didn't even get newspapers and things unless somebody somewhere had gotten them and they'd save them up and give you some old newspapers or something like that, magazine. Years later, we did prescribe to Progressive Farmers
Right.
and papers, but back when I was first born, we didn't have newspapers or anything.
You told me a story. You said that you called somebody, a black person, Mr. and somebody.
But I was there at Dad's and the boys was out there, and I said, "Here comes Mr. Ed Smith," and they said, "You don't say Mr., you say Uncle."
How old are you?
I don't remember.
You
Well,
teenager?
probably a pretty good sized girl, I imagine. But I thought you spoke Mr. They taught us to Mr. and Mrs. everybody. And Dad said that one time, a lady friend of his that he'd grown up with, and he taught us to call her Mrs., you know. And she said something to him about it, and she didn't make her children say it. And he said, "Well, my children are going to call anybody that's older than them Mr. and Mrs." So we were taught that.
And then also, if kids came and stayed with you, Mama Susie made them go to school, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course, usually that's why they stayed with us. So the Bryant family lived way down there in the bottoms, and they'd have to come out from the backwater, come out and stay with us weeks at a time. And there was one or two of those boys and come out, and of course that's what really they came for, was to go to school. And some of Uncle John's children would come out.
Do you remember the flood, the big flood?
37?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember going out in the boat.
Were you
Come to
scared?
Spottsville school.
You scared?
Oh, yeah, because we didn't know it was rain and the water was up and over everything. See, we had to go to school a lot of times in a wagon, drive through the water. And Dad would drive us down to Beals or to walk the highway over to Spottsville. And you could feel the wagon bed float. The water was so deep under it. But then there was a colored family lived over there where Uncle Carl is now. And so they had come to our house and was there with us.
They were staying at your house?
And the water then got over there and they was at our house. And so when the rescue boat came, they took some of us and some of them had to stay. And they said that colored lady was so, I can't think of her name right now, was so scared she was afraid they wouldn't come back and get the rest of them. But they did. They come back and got all of them. They wouldn't let you stay back there in it.
Well, all
So
the
we put
mosquitoes
the ponies and things upstairs in the attic, what they could save. The rest of them drowned. Well, they took cattle, some of them out, and took them. Some cattle went as far as Newburgh. Some come to Spottsville, high ground. Of course, a lot of them did drown. Hogs and cows.
And when you got back, what'd you find?
And Mama Susie and some of the children, they went to Henderson, stayed with Aunt Mattie Hollis. She wasn't really our aunt, but my sister was married to a Hollis.
Oh.
And so she was Carvel's aunt, I believe, anyway. That's where my mother and Ambrose, small, they stayed down there, but I stayed up at Spottsville School.
With other families?
Oh, there's a lot of families at Spottsville School.
How long were you there?
Until the ball went down. So
Was it a month?
I don't remember how long it was. Well, I imagine pretty close to a month.
And when you got back, what?
They had mud.
And a pony.
The Rita and Wendy's and everything else. We really had a mess to clean up, but we cleaned ours all up and
He ate the wallpaper and stuff.
painted, nailed our cabinets and things back together, and our beds back together, and got them all together. And that's the way what we had left.
How early in the morning did you get up every morning back then? Did you get up at sunrise?
Oh yeah, Dad and them got up every morning at 4 or 5 o'clock.
Like what would be a typical day? You get up, and what would you do?
We get up and have breakfast, and let's get ready to go to school. Now, after you got school age, when the boys always had to have mother do some of the laundry before we went to school. She had no washer outside, or either a board, and the boys had to rub the clothes and things. So Sis and I did work in the house and get part of that done before we went to school.
Just clean up or cook or?
My sis did a lot of cooking. She said when she was young, she was cooking beans. She wasn't very old, about 8 years old, I think. Maybe not that old. And I think Mother had a new baby, so she said she liked the beans. So Dad was one of these that would brag on you anyway, and he said, that's all right, that's the way I like them. So after that, the beans would be burnt. And Mother said, Cornelia, can't you cook beans without burning them? She said, that's the way Dad likes them.
That's nice. That's a nice story.
So she really done a lot of cooking. I played house outside, and I played, and they used to say, she's going to wash these dishes. And I'd go out and play, and I think they'd get them done. I'd go back, and the dishes was still, and then I'd have to do the dishes. Had a lot of dishes washed too, because there's always all that family and 2 or 3 hard hands.
Oh, you had hard hands.
Yeah, Dad always had some hard hands helping him, so.
Were they black or white?
But,
What did you play?
I maybe playhouses. Got in the chicken houses and the old smoke houses or wherever I could find the old broken dishes. That was my plates and anything you could find like that. I'd make me playhouse, take my dolls out there and play. Any kind of little old corner of a building you could find.
Did you ever think?
I probably didn't get in the chicken house because I'm scared. I was scared of chickens. Always scared of chickens. My cousin, when I was real small, when we lived over there where I told you, when I was about 2 years old, well, Uncle John and Aunt Goldie just lived in a house right in almost the same yard, and they raised all their family. They had about the same size of family as Mom and Dad did. We all played hide and go seeks and all those things together all the time. And my cousin Red would say, Emma, I got a feather. He couldn't say feather. And he'd say, I got a feather, I got a feather. And he chased me all over yards. And I was scared, so he got feathers.
Why?
I don't know, but a little old chicken, I just get my hand down there and wanted to touch it so bad, but it just, something just got all over me. I was scared of it. Just couldn't take it, couldn't pick it up.
So you didn't have to go get eggs.
And I was scared to give up eggs. Mother used to send me out to give up eggs, and I'd pick up old corn cobs or whatever it was and throw it at that old hen, make her get off the nest so I could get the eggs. Farm girl. I wasn't much of a farm girl. Scared to death of chickens.
You scared of hogs?
Hogs really didn't. You was talking about that today, but hogs didn't really scare me.
Did you ever hear stories about hogs eating people?
Yeah, well, we had to help Dad get the hogs up. They'd get out. They could get out the easiest of anything I ever seen. We'd have to chase hogs, line up around. Now, we have some sticks, and we'd holler, Suey, Suey, Suey. Get back in there, Suey, Suey.
You didn't raise goats?
No, I don't remember Mom and Dad had, because they probably had some, but I don't. But we had guineas and chickens and geese. And
What's a guinea?
it's kind of a gray looking, it's not a chicken, it's a
Guinea.
guinea. Guinea hen, guinea. We had ducks, duck eggs to eat. Little ducks that go to ponds of water, that was always so cute.
Y'all had a pond?
Well, there was all sloughs around us and always full of water.
Oh,
Now there's not any sloughs, they got it all drained out.
yeah. But
See, that was a wooded area. There was a lot of woods. Now there's not any woods. We used to ice skate down there in the woods, and because there was water would stand there all the time.
Where'd you get your ice skates?
Oh, just our feet.
Oh.
Wooden ice skates.
Did y'all ever, order stuff out of a catalog? Or?
Yeah. If I picked strawberries in the spring, came over to Spottsville and picked strawberries, and I think we got them, made a nickel a crate. I don't know where that was, that little box I think. And there was about 6 boxes in a crate. And I think you got a nickel. And so then we'd go home and order us a dress and a hat, Sears and Roebuck catalog, the Montgomery Ward catalog for Easter.
That's when you got new
dress, and then most all of our stuff was made. But my goodness, you could get all that for really cheap. A dress didn't even cost $1.98. I don't imagine no more than $1.98.
Did you ever want something?
Order some shoes.
Did you ever want something that you couldn't have?
Well, we really didn't know about it. Not really. Till after I got up and got to making my own, You just,
What would y'all do, like, after dinner, after you finished eating and it was,
You mean the evening meal or dinner
Yeah,
meal?
evening meal, supper.
Well, he was always so tired and he went to bed early. But you'd burn your coal lamps a little while, but they'd pop some popcorn sometimes in the fireplace. They had fireplaces, most of them. And
Did you ever, when you were growing up, go to a wedding? Or?
I don't, never
No.
really. Now, they had house parties and things, but we didn't go to house parties. Because Mom and Dad didn't go to house parties, so we weren't ever around them. But Aunt Golden and his families, they had house parties. So somebody probably had an old Victrola or something, you know, but we weren't raised that way, so we didn't.
Well, did Mama Susie and Gran just not believe in movies? Did they think that was bad, or they just didn't?
Well, they didn't even know about them, probably.
Where was the first movie you went to see? Do you know?
I don't remember. Then after I got up in high school,
Did you sneak off to see it?
I don't remember.
Where'd you go see it? Do you remember?
Probably Craver, I don't know for sure. Could have been over to Orangeburg, but we went over to Orangeburg a lot after we got teenagers, but slipped off my over. Women had the old car, and he'd load it down with 6 or 8 people in it, and we'd all go over there. But
You said you played games?
we just mostly played games and
What game? What kind of game?
whatever they was playing at that time. Might have played Jump Josie, I don't know.
What's Jump Josie?
Uh,
Jump Josie's?
just twisting around. And we played drop handkerchief, and we played hide and go seeks, and we
What's
played.
drop handkerchief?
You made a big circle,
Uh-huh.
and one had the handkerchief, and they go around this circle, and they dropped it behind. We were like me. They come to Emma, and they drop it behind her. Emma got out of the line, and she chased that one to catch her. And if she caught her, she had to get back in that line. And then I'd
Kind of
take
like Duck, Duck, Goose.
yeah, and I'd take the handkerchief then, and I'd go around, and
What was Jump Josie?
it was kind of a dance like, or I guess that's what you call it.
Like, how would you play?
I've never forgotten.
You just remember that. That's okay.
But anyway, well, we just played whatever games that we heard of or played.
Okay.
Played a lot of hide and go seeks. Played ball Annie over.
What's that?
That's throwing a ball over the house. Want somebody to be on the other side, and we'd say, Annie over, here it comes, and you tried to catch the ball. Little old ball, softball. And if you had a team, why, you know, you'd have 4 or 5 on that side and 4 or 5 on the other side. Say, Annie over, here it comes. And play that for hours. Just any kind of game you could think of, I guess.
You never swam. You never learned to swim, did you? Mom Susie wouldn't let you swim because you didn't know how?
They would drown.
Did
Well, we wasn't that close to the rivers.
Right.
And if you got in it, you had to get in a horse tank or the slough down there if it had any water in it.
How often did you take a bath?
Every Saturday. At least every Saturday you just washed off all the time.
Did you, I mean, like, was it, you know, you got...
You had a tub of water, and in the wintertime you was behind the stove so you could stay warm, usually in the kitchen. And then in the summertime you put the tub of water out in the yard.
Was it like
And let the
oldest?
sun heat it.
Did the oldest get in first?
I don't remember, but we all took that same tub of water.
When I was little, I took baths in the same tub of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not every Saturday night.
Yeah.